So, my first motorcycle ever, this is the Triumph Daytona 650 from 2005. So this beauty, first ever bike, it has a 636 engine. It's basically like a ZX6, and engine wise, it's a 2000, so mid 2000 sport bike. When I first saw this bike, I was just madly in love with it. Like it was cheap. It ticked all the right boxes. It came from a dealership, and it just looks so timeless. Like this motorcycle, it's a 2005 model. It is almost 20 years old at this point. You gotta imagine, this motorcycle is 20 years old next year. That is old for a motorcycle. But it holds its age so well. It looks so good being almost 20 years old. At the moment it has 31,000 kilometers on it. I bought it with 25,000 kilometers on it. So not a lot has been ridden with it. And then I use it as a daily for, well, quite some time. I dailied it for half a year. I'm guessing half a year, around there. Yeah. And then, well, I mentioned it in the review I did for my 2024 Honda CBR. I mentioned it that the first bike I had, that I crashed it in the first year of riding. Well, and this is the bike that I crashed. The whole front of it was completely away. I will put pictures in the video that you guys can see what actually happened. So I was riding back from work, and just one split second your attention is just looking away at one point, looking back, and the person in front of you is just hard on the brakes and crossing the road. Well, it was my own fault. I wasn't paying attention enough, and well, I tried to emergency brake, and well, it doesn't have ABS on it, of course, because it's a 2005. I fell over the bike fell on top of me, scraped off the side of the car with the front of it. Got lucky, got really lucky on that. You know when you buy something with your heart, like it is your first motorcycle, it looks great, it is cheap, but you don't think about all the other stuff, like why was it that cheap? Because it looks super good, it isn't that special, I thought, but when something goes wrong on a special bike, oh boy, you know it. You will know it. So I had my crash in April, and well, from April, so at the start of the Easter holiday, right when the season starts, I didn't get to ride up until the end of August. So the whole season was practically done for me. And even though it was only like front damage on the whole front right here, there was nothing on the engine, the block was perfectly fine, no leaks whatsoever. It was only like visual damage. But when you have a bike like this model has only been made with the 650 engine, and the way it looks, this has only been made for 2 years in the whole of Triumph's legacy. This was the model that came before the 675 Daytona, and well, we all know how great of a bike that is, and still is to this day. But this model was the last inline 4 that Triumph ever made. The last real inline 4 that Triumph made, the Daytona 650. But it was only made for 2 years. The year before they made a 600, but then it couldn't compete, so they tried to do it with a 636 engine to give it a little bit more spice. But afterwards they went to the 675, so they just added a little bit every time, and the 675 was a great bike. And this still is, in my opinion. It is a great motorcycle, but once you have some issues with it, well, it is really difficult to get it back together. Because only the front was damaged, but I had to get the subframe for the headlight, because the subframe was just broken off, so I had to get a new subframe for it. Triumph itself had to find that one all the way in India, and that was not an easy task for them. The headlight itself, we found it in Spain, and then there were some other parts that we also had to get from other countries. And we could only find from each of those parts, we could only find one. So we were desperately hoping that those parts would be good, that they would be fine, that there would be nothing in them, and that transport would be good. Even you see the fairings on the low side. All those fairings are Chinese fairings, because nowhere you can find OEM fairings for this bike. Unfindable unless you buy a whole other bike. Every time I say that, people are like, oh well, you don't really see it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, you don't see it, but I got really lucky on all that stuff. Got really lucky on all that stuff. Now, you still have some scrapes on it that I didn't yet got rid of. And I'll tell you why. So first you have right here, you have the scrape on the tank. And then you have right here the back piece. You see a little bit of a scratch. The part of here broke off, and you still have some scratches on it. That's pretty much it, what all damage means. But yeah, this, I wanted to get it painted. And I wanted to get this also fixed. But I got the whole fairing kit. I got a whole fairing kit for this bike still. So these are the fairings that I used, but this is the OEM part. And this OEM part, I didn't replace it with the Chinese fairing. And why? Because they just forgot to put all of the openings for the bolts on the bottom. So it's just a blank fairing. So you really got to put in some extra work if you want to make that piece fit. And yeah, well, I was just not feeling that. I was just really not feeling that. Then I finally get it back. After 4 months, I start riding, using it back as a daily, because I rode it every day. And it was fine, it was working good. And then all of a sudden I got some electrical problems, which these bikes are known for. Took a month and a half. Luckily at that point I bought the Honda, so I could go every day for my work again. But yeah, so the problem with it was that the stator blew. So the stator was all the way fried up, and we had to fix it on a new one. And now we finally have it back. The first thing that everybody always says about their first bike, if they don't have it anymore, is I have so much regret that I sold the bike. And I feel that. I feel that still. Because I was really doubting about selling this bike. I still am. Because I have had so much problems with this bike. It has been a pain in my butt for so long, but it's still my first bike, and you just have that love for it that cannot be replaced. I mean, look at it. It looks so amazing, and the way it sounds, the way it feels, the way it handles. It's the bike that you used where you just start off as a rookie and you didn't know anything about nothing. And you just learn on it, and you have a special kind of relationship with your first bike. I'm certain of that, and I think all of us will agree. All of you guys will agree on that the first bike you own, that is just special for you. So I would highly advise against selling your first bike, but I'm still hesitating. Just because I have some other financial stuff coming up, but yeah, we'll see about it. But enough talking. So, how does it sound? Because it's a 600, right? It should be screaming. Well, this can will tell you something else. It is mid-2000s, so we have basically no cats in between. No regulations in that time. We were just burning pure fuel into the air. And there used to be like a giant stock can on it. And now there isn't. And everybody, when I let them hear this bike, they're like, yeah, well, that doesn't sound like a 600. And I can assure you, no, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like a 600 at all. It sounds way deeper than a 600. And this is again where the love for this bike, just why it is the way it is. My CBR, it is stock full of technology. It works great. It is the most beautiful bike to ride with in terms of handling, and you name it, you call it. It does its job phenomenally. But this bike, yeah, it has something, you know. It has that feeling. It has that a little bit more character to it. It doesn't have any technology on it. It has a blinker, it has a headlight, it has brakes, it has an engine, and there you are. And sometimes the difference in riding experience is so big. And both bikes are amazing, but in their own right. This bike is 20 years older than the other one. It is just a raw feeling of motorcycling. And that is something that I adore. Because for my first bike, I said to myself, for my first bike, I want something not with basically no technology. I wanted a mid-2000 sport bike. Because that for me was the golden age, so to say. And when I learned on it, you have to keep in mind all the stuff that is extra when you don't have ABS, when you don't have traction control. It is such a big difference in riding experience, but it's just the rawness of it. It attracts you because motorcycling is something that is inherently dangerous. We all know that motorcycling is not a safe thing to do. And this it gives you that extra feeling of, oh, this is something worth doing, this is something worth trying. Just because it is so raw. And that's why I love this bike, man. This is just, it looks amazing. It has a great engine, it has a great story behind it at this point. And most people, if when it was so difficult to get this bike up and running again, for the difficulty, and it practically cost me nothing to buy it, but it was so difficult to get it replaced. But I still did it because I always have had this feeling towards this bike that it has something, and it was my first one. So you just have to get it back in order. You have to get it back up and running again. So yeah, I can keep on talking about this bike. I can just keep on rambling about it. What I love about it. What could be better on it? The brakes, for example. But in the end of the day, man, just listen to that. Yeah. Let's do a little ride, shall we? Because I've been talking for so long. I got this feeling that I've been talking for like half an hour. So, we're gonna do practically the same route that we did with the Honda review. I'm gonna tell you all about how this bike handles and what the difference is, but I'm gonna make a direct comparison between the two pretty soon. Oh man. Oh, just the rawness. So, even though this bike I can feel it always. It is much slower than my Honda, my 2024 model, which is to be expected, of course. It is much slower than it. And still, you feel like when you pull the gas on this, it has such a different feeling to it, man. Is so raw. It hits different. Like when you would ride, I don't know, like an old Ducati in comparison to a new one. It is the same brand, but it has so much rawness in it. That's what makes it on one side it makes it so amazing, and on the other, quite scary. I just got this bike back for a couple of days since the electrical problems have been solved. So I haven't had the chance to really ride it a whole lot since then. But boy, do you feel it. You expect different things from two different motorcycles, of course. And from this one, the thing you expect is just pure motorcycle, the pureness of the motorcycle beneath you. Like, you don't feel any technology kicking in. You know that everything that is happening, it is your doing, and that everything that goes wrong, that it is your fault. Turn again, And the big difference, what I always feel, like if I'm riding with this bike or the other one, the back tire slips out way more on this. Which makes sense. Oh man, the sound! Can you beat this? This is not a regular 600, man. This is not a regular 600. It's not even that fast. It's not even that fast. Stock this bike had, let me see, like 114, 115 horsepower. And honestly, not that much torque. I'm thinking like 68 Newton meters of torque. And it has lost some of that, I'm sure of it. But it just brings it so good. Jesus. It has some pops and bangs to it. And like, is this bike perfect? Of course not. It has some flaws. But that doesn't matter, you know. You take those flaws and you work with them. And you don't blame it for those flaws, because it is 20 years old at this point. You cannot expect a bike to be 20 years old and it be like showroom condition and all that. You need to take those flaws and you need to work with them. And you gotta appreciate them in a sense. Now, will I ever regret taking this as a first bike? Because some people will say like, oh yeah, well, why did you take a 20-year-old super bike that is English and not really to be trusted as your first bike, and is also, well, kind of rare. You don't see a lot of these. I haven't yet seen another one in Belgium. And do I regret it? Oh no, I don't. Oh no, I don't. I will never regret that decision. Of course, it's easy talking because I'm riding it now at the moment. At some moments, I was regretting it. When it works, it works. And it works so amazing. This bike has done everything to me, man. This bike has made me angry. This bike has made me smile from ear to ear. This bike has made me cry just because I couldn't ride in those 4 months. Like, motorcycle riding was everything to me when growing up, and man, this bike. Because I had a pretty long, to get back to it, I had a pretty long studying era for me. I got a bachelor's degree, then afterwards I got a university degree, so I did pretty long times of studying. So I only got the chance to actually ride and buy my motorcycle at the age of 27, 28. So this bike meant so much to me. It meant so much to me because I grew up on the back of motorcycles. It was such a big part of my life, but I never really got to ride one up until now, a year and a half. So for me, this bike was everything. And when it was out, you feel empty. Like, everybody who rides a motorcycle and does it with the amount of passion that it usually is, when you cannot ride your motorcycle, man, you feel bad. And like, not a little bit. You feel so bad. And that's how I felt for 4 months. Because I finally got my license after all of my life wanting a motorcycle. I got my dream motorcycle. Basically, this was a dream motorcycle for me. It was a mid-2000 sport bike. And then you crash it and you cannot ride in your first actual season of riding. So that really hurt. But then again, when you have it again, even though it hurt you so much because it was so difficult to fix this, when you have it again, it's like nothing ever happened. And you just feel alive again. And it means 3 times as much just to ride it. And like I said before, I can go on and on about this bike. But it just means so much. It means so much. It is such a good bike when it works. It feels so good. It sounds so good. I've said so much already, and like I said, I can keep on going about it. But this bike, man, it is something else. We all have had our first bike. We will all have our first bike at one point. That's what this channel is all about. Just motorcycles and the way that they integrate in our lives. And I'm telling you, it just means so much. They have drained the swimming pool. They do that every year. And then they pile on a whole new bunch of sand. It's nice to see. Normally those islands are with the 3 sticks sticking out. And you see the splashing board, the jumping board. Nice to see. Well, I'm gonna turn around because it is a shitty floor here. I'm not gonna put it down. I'm gonna put it on the road. But yeah, this motorcycle, everybody's first bike. You will always remember it. Everybody who has sold their first bike regrets it. I know, at this point, I know so many people who ride motorcycles in person, online, and there is not a single one of them who was like, oh yeah, I'm happy I sold my first bike. Nope. Everybody regrets it when they have sold their first bike. And the reason is pretty self-explanatory. These are bikes that we love with more than just ownership and basic kindness or basic stuff about your second or your third motorcycle. Like this is your first one. And your first one is such an important part of everybody's journey who's just riding a bike. It is the most important part because you learn the most on your first bike. You make the most errors on your first bike, yeah, as well. I made so much errors on this one. I dropped it twice as well. But it is something that you just cannot skip in your whole riding experience in the way you are learning how to ride a motorcycle. So why not keep those memories and remember every time you go ride that, hey, there is that bike that I learned to ride on. And remember all those flaws that you had and where you started. Because I'm telling you, it means a lot. It means so much. And I'm so grateful that this got to be my first bike. That this was my first bike. I am so grateful for it. Because it has been such a big learning experience. But it's not that reliable. In my opinion, it's not that reliable that you can daily it every time. Even though I did for half a year. Up until I had my accident, it was working perfect. No issues whatsoever. But it ticks all the boxes, man. When it works, it ticks all the boxes. It speaks love for me. It really does. It's all I ever wanted as a first bike. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Well, I talked about it a lot of. It was really a lot of talking. I hope it's not too much. But yeah, that's a little bit my story with this motorcycle. But yeah, love it to bits. If you guys enjoyed it, I hope you did, because this video, for me, it is a pretty big one, because I put a lot of emotions that I always have had about this bike. I put it in, because everybody, you know how it feels, so I'm not gonna take that away. I'm not gonna make it too businessy. Yeah, so if you guys enjoyed it, give it a like. You know it. This was a two-wheeling Belgian, and this was my first bike. I'm still riding it today, and I love it to bits. Like, comment, subscribe. See you in the next one. Peace.